I'm setting up a campsite here tonight. I'm curious how many people here spent time when they were young sitting in front of the stereo record player. Just wave your hands and wave. Raise your hands and wave. Look. Oh, isn't that lovely? Now, how many of you had some things to play along with the records? Curious? Anybody? Tupperware containers. Ooh, one little star out there. Chopsticks on Tupperware containers. I used wooden blocks. My brothers had a set of wooden blocks they used to build forts to race their cars on. I built small houses that Barbie and Ken fit in, and I married them off every morning before I went to school. Ken didn't have any clothes. He just had a red bathing suit that he arrived in. I thought he looked just fine in that. And I got Barbie's wedding dress with an amazing deal they were offering in the early 1960s in Caracas, Venezuela, where I was living, which was that if you filled up your tank at the Exxon gas station, you could win an outfit of Barbies. And that's how I came by her wedding dress. Now, I always felt after that that that's the only place I could have ever come by her wedding dress. And I mention these things because growing up, I really did spend a lot of time in front of the record player. And years later, when, as storytellers, we would talk about the culture that we came from, and what were the stories we were given, all I could think was that mine did come from my family, but it really came from the LP vinyl collection that we had. Burl Ives and Pete Seeger and Carl Orff's Music for Children. T.S. Eliot reading his cat poems, that beautiful voice. And I remember my mother later telling me that she used to say to my dad, I've given her instruments to play in front of the stereo. She stays there so much longer. So I just thought I'd mention that because as a result, you know, one day I was playing my washboard and I thought, you know what, Angela? You have figured out how to continue to have the things you love to play all right there in front of you. They're just attached to this. And I was out in the lobby, and there's some plain washboards out there, which were for 40 years in an LA warehouse. And Jerry Kings, one of our wonderful storytelling colleagues, was in charge of clearing out the warehouse. And she found 40 boxes of double-handy washboards that had been sitting there, 60 boxes of them. So I told her I'd help spread them out around the country. But the lady in the lobby said that there were some young people who were coming up and asking her, what were they for? So I thought it was important that I give a little laundry lesson. Because there may come a day when the washing machine does not work. So you need a garment you would hold in your hand. You would not necessarily be wearing the clothes you're washing, but you would scrub it on the board. And if you did that, you would hear the sound underneath it. Ah, nice sound. So I thought we'd do a little melody, and you may know this, but here's your part. It goes like this. Your part is boom diada boom diada boom diada boom, and then you breathe. And that on the washboard is notated by the blue balloon. This is the musical rest. So you see if you can hear it. So it's boom diada boom diada boom diada boom. Try that again. Boom diada, boom diada, boom diada, boom. Thank you. You gotta have that space, you know. If you don't have the space, it changes the song. Like in the Pink Panther, da 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 da. I didn't even do the space. bass. Let me start that again. Da-da, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. See, now if you take the space out, it sounds like this. So what? What's the next part that goes after so what? Please, Willie, say it for me. Thank you. So what? Drop dead. I never put that together before. Okay, excuse me. That's on one of his albums. You'll need to take it home with you tonight. Back to your singing part. Boom diada, boom diada, boom diada, boom. Nice. Boom diada. Hold on, I just have to pitch this. I'm so happy here right now. I have to focus. Okay. Here we go. We're in pitch. Here we go. Boom diada, boom diada, boom diada, boom. Boom diada, boom. Okay, nice. Boom, keep going. You saw me standing alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. Let's pick it up a little bit. Boom, boom. You knew just what I was there for. Someone I really could care for. Someone to call my own. Stop. And then there suddenly appeared before me the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked, the moon had turned. And when I looked, the moon had turned to gold. Come on in. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom. Now I'm no longer alone, without a dream in my heart, without a love of my own. One more, please. A boom diada, boom diada, boom diada, boom, a boom. That Pete Seeger harmony in you, that was gorgeous. That was. This is an instrument that when we go looking for it later, so we can have one in our closet, it's hard to find. This is an old fairy tale. It comes from a book called My Book House, published in 1920, Chicago. Found it in a book on the bottom shelf at a friend's house. When you sleep on a futon at your friend's houses, you get to see really close up the books on the bottom shelves. It's true. And they are, many times, their most favorite and most beloved and forgotten. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a village where everyone was miserable. I was wondering what that would look like over there. Everyone was miserable. They complained that their town was so far away from other places that The peddlers, merchants who made their way from one place to another, they didn't come there very often. And lately, when they had been coming, the stuff they brought was stupid stuff. They wished that they wished they didn't all have to work. Person who could have supported them so they didn't have to do that, they didn't live in that town. But here's the worst thing that had happened to that place. And that was that the children had become infected with their parents' discontent. I want to say to you that one day when it was overcast and cloudy, there first came into that place a sound. And the lady out digging the potatoes, the young girl, she looked up and she saw a ragged peddler with a threadbare vest, open, flapping, looking for its lost buttons, the soles of his shoes flapping in the dust. His hat had holes in it, his hair was sticking out, and his nose was running. He came into the town and everybody gathered round because he had a basket on his shoulder, and that was promising. They gathered round, they said, "What have you got to sell?" And he snapped his fingers and the basket jumped from his shoulder, and as it flew through the air he said, "I sell happiness." And they all crossed their arms in front of themselves and they said, "We don't want any." The basket turned in the air like a gymnast and landed upside down. And he said, "I sell happiness." And somebody said, "What does it look like?" And they all came forward and looked in the basket. He'd snapped his fingers and the basket turned right side up. The basket was empty. "It's empty. It's empty. It's empty," they said. A boy looked at the peddler and said, "Bet you don't take your hat off very often." The man took his hat off, he put it back on, and his hair found its way through the same holes. They said, "Nice." There was a colored rope around his neck, right, his waist. And a young girl said, "What's that rope for?" And he untucked the end of it and he handed it to her, and she did what all children ought to do, should do, can do, and she pulled on it as hard as she could, and he started to spin. You couldn't even see his clothes anymore, just this color going round. But that rope, it danced up over their heads, tied itself to a tree, danced over, spinned, and tied itself to the only other tree in town. It was exactly long enough, and all the people in town who measured said, "Nice." The peddler took a step back and he said, "And now my shop is open. Come on forward, and if you have a trouble or a something, if you have a monkey on your back, if you have an old story, if you have an old wound, a challenge, if you have a story you're telling yourself that doesn't work anymore, come on forward and put it in the basket." Everybody said, "I'm not going up there." "Are you?" "I'm not going up there." There was a young boy with a bicycle tire. It was flat. His father had been promising for weeks to fix it. The boy dragged the tire forward because he just took it everywhere with him in case he saw his dad. And he shoved it in the basket, and he said, "I have a flat tire." The tailor, who had wild red hair and never liked it, he took his baseball hat off and he was hiding it under that. He shoved it into the basket. He just said to himself, "I don't like my hair." There was a widow with 2 young girls. She put an empty coin purse. The teacher, convinced no such thing as time anymore, she dropped in her watch. Everybody had something. A young girl had a locket. Her boyfriend had broken up with her. She'd taken his picture out and saved it in her underwear drawer. Don't tell anybody. And she dropped the locket into the bottom of the basket. It was empty now, ready for a new picture maybe. And then he snapped his fingers and all the basket flew up in the air and hung everything out on the line. The young kids at home thought, "Oh, see, in the old days, they washed clothes on washboards and they hung things on the line." But the peddler stepped back and he said, "Now my shop is open. Come on forward and take from the line the smallest trouble that you see. From me to you today, it's free." Everybody said, "I'm not going up there." "Are you going up there?" "I'm not going up there." But someone stepped forward and another followed. And he said it a couple times, "Take from the line the smallest trouble that you see. From me to you today, it's free." And it was like they were in a museum, really looking at what was hanging. One fellow had put his leg in because it was stiff and he missed running. But you know, everybody took something back. And then they were standing and looking. And there was a group aha, because they all had taken back what they had put in. And they started to turn and talk to each other. One woman came up to the widow and said, "Bring your daughters and come for supper tonight." The tailor was putting his hat on and the girl was putting the locket round her neck, and she was next to the tailor and she said, "Don't put your hat on so fast." The peddler snapped his fingers and the rope dropped to the ground, and like a sleepy snake came and just wrapped around his waist, really quiet, very different than showtime when it came off. He snapped his fingers and the basket just jumped up onto his body, onto his shoulder, and he turned and he started to walk out of the town, and the kids were actually, they noticed, they saw, and they ran after him, and they said, "Hey, Mister, stay for supper. Take your hat off again." And he took his hat off, and he put it back on, and his hair found its way through the same holes, and they said, "Thank you, nice." And ladies and gentlemen, when he reached the top of the hill, the peddler disappeared. And there were days after that when the people were working outside and they thought they heard the sound of those bells. And when they would think they thought they heard them, they would look up, and the children close by, they would pull on their clothes and say, "Dad, what? What are you looking at?" And the story would again unfold. The people in that place did not live happily ever after. The people in that place lived happier than ever before. And there is a sentence I want to tuck in that comes from the end of Lake Wobegon days. It's the third to the last sentence in Garrison Keillor's book. He gave me permission to tuck it in. It goes like this: "Some luck lies in not getting what you thought you wanted. but getting what you have, which once you have it, you may be smart enough to see is what you would have wanted had you known. What? Okay. Some luck lies in not getting what you thought you wanted. Yeah. But getting what you have, which once you have it, you may be smart enough to see is what you would have wanted had you known.